closer, you two. Yeah, just what's the yellow line?
Tom. Hello, James.
Good morning, everybody. It's really exciting to be here at the platform at Central Railway Station with Transport Minister Andrew Constance, who's been working hard at it to make sure the new intercity fleet, or the trains that take us between the regions in New South Wales, just a short while away from being operational. And the Minister and I will have the chance today to catch the train from here to Strathfield to check out the quality assurance, make sure it's comfortable for the customers that will use it, but also to really allow us to absorb and digest what's been able to be achieved during the very difficult 18 months our state has had. Notwithstanding that time, we've made sure that whether it's building roads and hospitals and schools or major new railways, that we're also improving our infrastructure, our assets for our citizens, making customer service a priority. And for many people who need to use or want to use trains to get between certain locations, this will be a very welcome relief. And I understand the first lot of trains will be operational between Sydney and the Hunter, Sydney and Newcastle, and obviously expanding, virtually replacing all the existing intercity fleet. This is an opportunity for all of us to reconnect to public transport. COVID has meant that we've changed the way we work, we've changed the way we move around, and as we move through the pandemic, as we move through obviously the vaccination program continuing, it means that all of us can think about what normal life will look like during this part of COVID and post-COVID. And being able to rely on a transport system, brand new trains, is always exciting, and I'm sure our customers will be very pleased with what they'll find and what they'll see. More automation, more information, more comfortable seating arrangements and better service is what we're about, and I'm really pleased that this is what these trains represent. I also want to thank Minister Constance. The trains will be called Mariong, which in the Darug language means emu, which I think is a nice and fitting way to recognise this new fleet. As you know, we have names for many of our fleet, including the Waratahs and others, and I think Mariong, in recognition of our Indigenous Australians, especially the Darug people, in the meaning of the word emu, is a very fitting and positive way to welcome these trains onto our network. So I also want to thank the entire team from Transport New South Wales and our private sector partners who've made this possible, and just say to the citizens of this great state, providing timely services, opportunities for people to move around is very important to us. And I want to thank Minister Constance and his team for making these trains available in the not too distant future. As I understand, the safety regulators are the only thing standing in our ways to make sure that all the safety checks are done. Well, it's safe enough for me to use today, so I'm hoping that's all been done already. It has been done already, yeah. Okay, fantastic. Minister Constance, over to you.
Thanks, Premier. Well, it doesn't matter if you live in Newcastle, the Central Coast, to the Illawarra, or out to Lithgow. This train replaces a 40-year-old VSET train, and it's designed to give modern-day features from safety through to improvements. The fact that we now have a train with an accessible toilet for people with disabilities is very important. The fact that we're able to provide the safest train on the network alongside the Waratah is very, very important for us all. We're dealing with platforms which are not in the heart of town, and it's really important, given the curved nature of the platforms, that we do have the latest in technology, and that's where the CCTV comes into it. I also particularly want to give a huge thank you to the consortium behind this, of course involving Hyundai Rotem, Mitsubishi Electric, and of course UGL, and to all the team, particularly up at Kangiangi, who are now going to be maintaining and stabling the facility and the trains. This is what is really important for our customers. There is no doubt when you replace a 40-year-old train with a new one, there's going to be excitement, and in the few weeks ahead we're going to see this train making its way up to the Hunter first up, and there is no doubt for those commuters, having the comfort is something which is also very important. Can I also thank the transport team? This has been obviously a challenging time with COVID, but they've been able to get on and get this train on the tracks, and it's just tremendous news for our customers, and comes at a very exciting time as people return back to the network en masse. Thanks. Yeah, so in the next couple of weeks we will have our first passengers, and as I said, the first trip will be to the Hunter. The main thing that has to happen now obviously is the final approval in terms of the National Rail Safety Regulator, completion of just the agreement with the unions. And can I just say this, I mean, the staff and the feedback we've had directly from the teams already has been very positive. It's been oversubscribed in terms of the number of train drivers wanting to drive this train. And also, of course, we've been able to retain the customer service staff and guards to also protect the community. Yeah, it was. And the thing is that I think in today's COVID world, and obviously the ongoing issues around industrial, that we've been able to deliver it. And that's the exciting part. And, you know, ultimately, when the network was right down, it's great to be able to have this new train as we see the network start to return to normal. I've just answered your question, James. I've just answered your question. Well, yeah, I've told you. We're a couple of months late, but we're now going to obviously see it on the tracks. Well, I mean, specifically in relation to the union issue, I want to recognise the union. They've been involved in the industrial negotiations around this train now for the best part of 4 years. And as you know, the technology on board has meant changing roles, and that's where the union has had an issue. One of the issues which is very important for safety is that in terms of the guard doors, we're not going to see people swinging outside the trains like we have previously. And I make no apologies for that, because we're one of the last jurisdictions in the world in which this practice has occurred. And we're retaining the staff, the union know it, and very pleasingly we'll get the final bit of that agreement in place and get on with it. Yeah. Well, let's just wait and see. I mean, the reality is there's just a completion of the enterprise agreement. I'd expect that to happen in the next couple of weeks. We've got the national sign-off happening in terms of the regulator, and then we'll be on board.
That's my understanding, and there aren't any new community transmission cases that I've been advised of since. So we're just repeating our advice. I welcome the news from the Queensland Government about the lockdown being lifted in Brisbane, although I understand there are restrictions in place across Queensland. But we're confident that New South Wales is able to deal with the current scare that we've had. We're obviously asking the population of those 4 council areas to respect the restrictions we've put in place until the end of Easter at least, and we're confident that won't really prevent businesses from staying open. It won't prevent people from doing what they would normally do, although we have asked people to be extra cautious, to respect the restrictions, and to respect the COVID-safe activity all of us have had to put in place. We're also really asking people who live in those 4 council areas to consider not going out of that area over Easter. It's, again, we're not going to police that, but it's just strong advice we're giving, because if there is some undetected case of community transmission, we don't want to see it seed in other parts of the state. And I'm just really grateful. I think from memory we had more than 20,000 tests in the last 24 hours, which is a great result for New South Wales under the circumstances. And I'm just deeply grateful that people are taking our advice and are following through on the new conditions that will exist over Easter. Well, the good news is that ironically, because other states hadn't welcomed New South Wales citizens in the last 12 months, many people have been holidaying in northern New South Wales. And so prior to this incident, I was getting feedback from businesses in that area that they'd been oversubscribed, in fact, during some parts of the year when they normally wouldn't be welcoming tourists. So we'll assess that. And I know this is a huge downer for many businesses who hope to trade more readily over the Easter break, but the good news is they all remain open. They do go back to the 4 square metre rule in those communities, which the rest of New South Wales had some months ago. But they'll still be able to trade, they'll still be able to welcome people, and businesses that are smart will actually still be able to have the same number of customers if they have a roster system or make sure people book. So I'm confident businesses will get through this. I'm also quite positive about their capacity to keep going, given the last few months we have seen a resurgence in regional tourism, especially in that part of New South Wales. And of course we'll continue to monitor the situation, but we'll also, I'll just add one more thing. We'll also encourage people, obviously, post Easter, when we encourage people back to that region to travel, that you use your Dine and Discover vouchers. How good would it be to take your family up and use the vouchers that Service New South Wales is providing everybody in that community who may have had a more depressed Easter than what they'd otherwise hope. Yeah, I think people realise and accept that the pandemic is an evolving situation, and I would have loved to have seen that festival continue, but under the circumstances it just wasn't viable. But the good news is that for the balance of New South Wales, you can still have all those other things you couldn't do before. So we're going to get these blips along the way as we navigate the pandemic. There are going to be little blips, but we need to make sure they're little blips. And New South Wales has demonstrated our ability to just directly deal with those local communities directly affected and have the rest of the state still continue on the same path. So in recent days, even with the package we announced recently for live music, I think the industry as a whole is doing much better than what they'd done previously. And yes, the festival going ahead would have been great, but it's just a postponement as far as I'm concerned, and the government will continue to work with the organisers to see if that can be resurrected at a future stage. Sorry, I'll just go, James, and then back to you, Liz. Yeah.
So these 33,750 notices supposed to arrive in week 3 of the 3-day plan. New South Wales doses?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure.
Because, I mean, you've got 80,000 odd doses.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Are those doses people aren't yet right next to on the shelf? If they're still on the shelf, is there anything people would have done or should do now?
Look, the bottom line is we've administered at least 100,000 doses in New South Wales, and the goes up in the thousands every day. That was the figure I had 2 days ago. So we're confident that if we get more doses, of course, we'll make sure they get out. And I just reiterate my strong message that we want to help with the rollout. The New South Wales government is ready and willing to help. We just need to be given the green light to be able to do that. Liz was next, sorry. Yeah.
More cases come to Sydney. We will see the same kind of use shots happen.
Oh, look, there's no suggestion whatsoever. I mean, I'm excited that the Royal Easter Show is going ahead. It will actually be the largest ticketed event during the pandemic, I think, anywhere in the world, is the stat I heard this morning, if that's correct. But I'm really looking forward to people reconnecting in a way we haven't been able to. I remember last year how devastating it was when we cancelled the Easter Show. It was the first major public event that had been cancelled. It was when the state was going into a very difficult period in relation to the lockdown and also in relation to COVID. And I think we can reflect now to see the show come back to life, albeit a bit differently. You do have to book online, and it won't be the same as previous years, but I think it'll be better. I think people will be planning their time there. I encourage people to do it in a COVID-safe way. I'm looking forward to going myself, and I think it's a very positive thing to look forward to. But we have to accept that the pandemic is evolving. It's challenging. There'll always be times when we might need to amend what we're doing or consider what's happening. But at this stage, I'm very pleased with how things are going, and I'm very pleased about what it means for the future. Oh, look, we're just about wanting to lend a hand. We want to make sure that there's a hope in reaching the October deadline. We have to remember vaccinate 6 million citizens in New South Wales, and a vaccination is 2 shots, not 1 shot. It's very different to the flu vaccine. It's not like anything we've experienced. We're just saying to the federal government, and the offer always stands, we just want to help. We're here to help. And the reason we want to help, the reason why we want to support and assist them is because the quicker people are vaccinated, the quicker we can look forward to the easing of restrictions, to feeling safer, and to overseas trips. And I think that's something all of us would welcome. Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, no, I wrote to the Prime Minister yesterday, and I'm looking forward to the response. Oh, I said the letter said what I said publicly, in that we're offering, because as you know, the New South Wales government's been asked to administer 300,000 doses of the vaccine. We've done about a third of that. And when we complete the 300,000, we're offering to do tens of thousands a week more to support their efforts. And I'm looking forward to getting the response. No, actually, we're not. We haven't been given the green light.
Many centres.
No.
Like, what is the green light?
The green light at this stage, can I be very clear about this? And I've just asked people to be accurate in the reporting of this with all due respect, is that the Commonwealth has responsibility for the entire vaccine rollout, except for the 300,000 the New South Wales government's been asked to do. So we have 6 million citizens that need to get the rollout. We've not yet had the green light to do anything beyond the 300,000 that we've been asked to do. And what I'm saying to the Commonwealth is the GP network is fantastic. Pharmacies, if they come online, will be fantastic, but you still will need our support to meet the October deadline. So you can't do it on your own, and that's why I'm suggesting that once we've completed the 300,000 we've been asked to do, that we will have the capacity to do tens of thousands extra every week to support what the Commonwealth is doing. Otherwise, we won't get to the October deadline. And can I make it very clear, the New South Wales government does not and has not received permission to do that. And that's why I've written to the Prime Minister yesterday, and I'm looking forward to ongoing discussions about that. I'm sorry, yeah. I can't really explain that. I can explain what we're doing in relation to it. I can certainly say that we've been asked to do 300,000 vaccines by a particular time, and can I assure the people of New South Wales that we will absolutely meet our deadline. And that's obviously subject to the supply of vaccines, but there's nothing to suggest to me that we won't meet our deadline. We're working really hard, and every opportunity I get, I want to thank the frontline health workers and the health department. The New South Wales Health has been outstanding in making sure we have an organised way to get the vaccine out. I think we're the only state in the nation that has an online booking system, very easy to use, and of course we're wanting to do more if we're allowed to do more. Oh look, I don't want to concern anybody. There's nothing that I've seen or heard that would cause any concern about any activity in Greater Sydney or broader New South Wales. So I want everybody to feel very positive. The Easter show will be a very COVID-safe event. You have to, like other years, you can't just rock up. You have to make sure you get ticketed. There's limited numbers every day, but still thousands of people will be able to enjoy the show in a COVID-safe way, and that's the important thing. An Easter show is very different to a music festival when people are together and dancing and singing and music. So it's a very different environment, and we just need to make sure that every response we have to the pandemic as a government is proportionate to the risk. And that's always been our guide, to make sure that everything we do is in proportion to the risk that's faced. Clearly, outside of the 4 local government areas, we don't have any reason to be concerned. We're confident about the way things are going. But of course, we always qualify that by saying pandemics aren't predictable. You always have to be nimble. But I'm very confident about what Easter looks like for the vast majority of our citizens in New South Wales. Sorry, one more there. Yeah. Oh, look, it's always frustrating when these happen, but I just want to say thank you to the organisers of the festival. I know that our health officials and the Minister has been in direct contact with them. They've been absolutely outstanding in their response, and I think they appreciated our efforts to try and make it work until the last minute. We tried to consider a way in which you could go ahead safely. When that wasn't possible, there was a mutual agreement to not have the event at this time. But I do hope the event might come back in a couple of months' time when things have settled down, and that's the nature of a pandemic. I just want to really thank everybody for their patience and their cooperation and their collaboration. We know it's an incredibly frustrating time for a lot of people, not just the organisers, but those that were looking forward to attending it. But I think all of us have experienced in our own personal lives and in our own work life that unfortunately life isn't normal during a pandemic, and from time to time all of us have to do things differently or give things up. And I just want to thank everybody again for the way in which they've responded and the way in which they've dealt with us.
You've been speaking, people on the Byron Bay are watching and being relayed messages by the company at the comment, and saying that they're making the point that it's unfair. Most people can go down there and visit them now. They're being told not to leave.
Oh look, it's just for people's own safety. And the reason is you can leave. We're not going to police you not being able to leave the region if you want to, but we're just saying it's safer for you and for everybody else for you to reconsider your plans if you can. It's not mandatory, but from a health perspective, if there are, and this is what we'd just like people to consider, we know that there's been community transmission. We know a number of venues have been affected. But if there are any cases that we haven't picked up, and then people unintentionally go and visit other parts of Australia or other parts of New South Wales, they can, it's a low risk, but they can unintentionally seed the virus in communities where the virus doesn't exist. So as I said yesterday, we were very careful to say it's not mandatory for you to have to stay in your local community if you're from one of those 4 local government areas, but it's our preference that if you have an option, if you have the choice, well then please make those arrangements. But obviously if you're attending an important family gathering like a wedding or something else, we understand that, but there is a risk associated with that. So we just ask you to be extra careful, and I think people would appreciate just having that level of common sense in moving forward. And I think what we've suggested to the community is fair and reasonable under the circumstances. And I'm also confident that citizens will make their own assessment of what's safe to do, consider their own personal circumstances, and then make decisions accordingly.
Premier, how do you see the upper Hunter by-election? How do you concern the government will lose that?
I have no doubt we won't retain the seat. If you look at the history of by-elections in New South Wales, there's been at least a double-digit swing against governments, and certainly it would take more than a miracle for us to keep the seat. Of course, we'll try hard, but if you just look at the maths, on average, the swings against governments in by-election in the last 10 years since we've been in government have been between 10 and 15%. So I have very little confidence we'll retain the seat, but that's not to say we won't put a strong case. We'll put our best foot forward, but the maths are against us. I'm sorry? Oh look, I'll do whatever's required of me, of course. I believe in the people of that region, and I believe they'll give the by-election careful consideration. However, it will be a huge challenge for us to keep the seat, and I've always been very open with the public. We will work hard. We will do everything we can, obviously, to put our case, but the maths is against us. All I say is just look at the facts and what's occurred in the recent past. Swings of between 10 and 15% against the government have been frequent in by-elections, and we always hope for a miracle and hope we can buck that trend, and we'll work our hardest, as we do every day. I hope people appreciate that what we do there will be no different to what we've been doing every day, getting up and working hard for the people of this state.
And what would that mean for your ability to pass? What would that mean for your ability to pass legislation?
I'm confident. Oh look, I'm confident that we will continue to work hard with the Parliament, and I'm confident that those independent members of the House will support good legislation, and that's the challenge I've always given to my colleagues. When you put forward good pieces of legislation, when you put forward good policy, it will get support.
In saying that you have no doubt that we won't retain the seat, you'll submit the seat, and if you have, why would...
No, I'm saying we will put forward. Look, I don't want to dwell too much on this because the people of this state want us to govern and not be obsessed with the politics. But I'll say this: we will work our guts out, as we do for anything that we do in New South Wales, and work really, really hard. But all I'm saying is that the maths are against us. All I'm saying is look at. I believe in speaking frankly and directly. All I'm saying is look at the recent history of by-elections. They go against governments, and in New South Wales the swings are between 10 and 15%. Of course, I hope that won't be the case. I hope we'll pull off a miracle. All I'm saying is look at the maths and the facts, and that's what we're looking at. Absolutely. Oh look, I absolutely believe people will reflect what they're feeling, and I hope they also reflect the job the government's doing. But as I said, the facts are there in relation to by-elections.
What happens to the restrictions in those 4 council areas on Tuesday? I mean, the votes run out on Monday. Will they go back to...
Yeah, well, unless we have advice to the contrary, my expectation is that we will go back. Those 4 council areas will go back to what the rest of the state has, and that's what I anticipate. That's my hope. And if we continue the path we're on, I have no doubt that come Monday, or come the end of Easter, we'll be able to revert back to those local government areas doing what the rest of the state does.
Just on WA, apparently they threatened to close the border to us yesterday if we have any more cases. On this issue, we've had months and months and months of state premiers doing this on 1 or 2 cases. Obviously, you have a different opinion. Are we going to get any kind of consistency between the state premiers on this? I mean, are they picking on New South Wales at this point? Like, what is happening with the premiers?
Oh, look, I would hope that we're moving towards a better approach. And can I say this? Some of you may be surprised at my comment, but I think the way the Queensland government has handled their outbreak has been a bit different to what they've done in the past. So I think they've managed it much better than what they would have before, and I'm confident that other states are warming to the idea of being able to localise an outbreak and not subject the entire state to a lockdown or a difficult set of circumstances. So I'm heartened that some states are seemingly moving towards the way that New South Wales handles things, but then who am I to kind of comment on that? We have the QR codes, we have advanced systems which give us confidence to deal with a pandemic in a particular way. But I'm always optimistic. I think we can all work together to really get good outcomes for our citizens, and that's what it's all about.
Premier, just one more question on process. National Cabinet Group is one of the biggest to be released, were ones being invested to ask what should be okay for releasing these economic resources.
I have no issue with any of that whatsoever. We've always been very open and transparent in the way we present information. I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Expect on Monday that we release the details of how many doses have been provided, how many doses have been.
I have no issue with that. We already do that. We've got a dashboard and we already do that. In New South Wales, we already do that. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Minister Constance, which door are we going in?
Take a bit.
Carriage 4,
Carriage
apparently.
You're getting on the train and then it's like 12:07, you're sort of stuck. Yeah, what did I say? 7 past 12.